Here on JAKIB Sports. I'm your host, Sandra Krause. That's my co-host, John McMullen, fresh off of the Eagles joint practice number 1 yesterday with the New England Patriots. Johnny Mac, how you doing on this Thursday morning, my friend?
Doing well. Wasn't the greatest reports from the practice, but I'm going to be more optimistic than most people think, I think, when it's all said and done. I heard good things about the running game, and that's what I'm most impressed about. And I don't think you can evaluate this passing game until Devontae Smith and Mekhi Lemon are back. I don't think the backup receivers, for all the hype, I don't think they're good enough, flat out. So they're not going to bounce back. Hopefully they bounce back today. Just, if you get beat and you have these things, generally you make that extra effort, the human nature of it and things like that. And maybe they bounce back from that perspective. But I don't think they're prepared. I just don't think they're good enough at receiver without those two players. And look, I'm not saying Mekhi Lemon's the answer because I have no idea what he is, but at least there's the potential.
Yeah.
I don't think the potential is there with the back end group.
Yeah, I don't disagree with you. I mean, it's going to be tough to have major success without Devontae Smith out there, obviously. You know what I mean? But
number one,
I mean, that probably highlights your point even more,
Yeah, exactly. So I can't get too worked up over that. And for all accounts, they started out really good in the running game, and that to me is going to be the bell cow of this offense. And so that was a positive. And negative with Jonathan. I was thinking about Greenard, and I'm like, all right, now it's into the season potentially. Vic always gives us the most information.
Yeah, Vic is seems very high on that situation.
Possibly, and even if he is back, you would think it would be on a limited rep count. But it's interesting to me. I worry more about, even though Greenard's a much better player, more proven than Mekhi Lemon at his position, who's a rookie and completely unproven. I think it's far more concerning than Lemon's not there, simply because, look, they could be a good team with the edge rushing room they have, as they were last year. But I think it's gotten even better. Jalen Hurts has had a tremendous summer. He looks like he's ready to take the next step. Arnold Ebiketie, AJ Epinesa look like legit rotational pieces. So you go in there with Hunt and Smith and Ebiketie and Epinesa, whichever's 3 and 4. I mean, you can hold down the fort for a month. I could think you could play the whole season, to be honest, and be competent. You'd struggle a little bit at times, I think, in pockets, and you want Greenard back. But I think you're fine. You can persevere.
Yeah, I'm with you. I wonder if Howie's not regretting it, but maybe a little buyer's remorse. I don't know. I wonder if he's thinking the same
No,
thing
I don't think that either. I mean, injuries happen. It's a pack. It is what it is. I think they'll be, when he is healthy, I think it'll be great for the team. I'm just saying they have tremendous depth there.
Yeah,
and you can persevere, even though it's a better player. Where at wide receiver, I don't even know what Mekhi Lemon is, but I'm counting on him because the guys behind him are just not good enough.
Yeah, right.
John, what'd you make the difference? Yeah.
No, I'm with you. I get exactly what you're saying. It's an interesting situation here. John, what'd you make of some of the reports that came out yesterday from the joint practice? Patriots sounds like they got the better of the birds. Jalen Hurts got picked off a couple of times in 7-on-7s. I don't think we need to overreact about that, but maybe you'll have a certain take on it. And defense got beat up a little bit, J-Mac. What'd you make of some of the reports coming out from yesterday's
Well, AJ had a day. So, I mean, from all indications, I think
he's a good player. I joked with everybody. Yeah. Just because you leave the Eagles doesn't mean you're not a good player.
Yeah,
anymore.
Well, evidently it did in a lot of people's minds, but I think he shut that door pretty quickly. I think of all the balls I saw thrown to him yesterday, the only one was incomplete was the one-on-one against Quinyon Mitchell, and he had him beat.
Yeah, he did have him dropped.
If it was laid out, it didn't have to slow up for it. So whatever he caught, 6, 7 balls, kind of dominated the practice. As you said, he's a really good player, but and he's probably hyped up for it. But so that's a little bit disappointing. They are banged up in the secondary, as I said. Although, obviously Quinyon was out there. I don't know. I didn't see. I don't know if you saw if there was a rep count on him. I don't know who was getting beat by AJ. I know Woolen did on the one pass. He's taken a step back from the spring. I've mentioned that a couple of times. He's a good player, but I don't think he's as good when the pads come on as when he can show off his athleticism in shirts and shorts, where it can really stand out. So, I think, the silliness of the one-on-one reps, like you're doing a double move and one-on-one beating Cooper, like, who cares? What?
Did Cooper look slower to you, though? I mean, he looked slower to me. And that I'm not it's not a criticism, but he did add a lot of muscle.
He did.
He slowed up a little bit. I mean, that's going to be a problem for him, I think, in nickel versus, if he's projecting at safety, I think that's a good thing.
Well, yeah, we'll have to see moving forward, but the particular rep that everybody's wowing about, it's like, again, you have to know how to watch practice. If you're breaking off a one-on-one and doing a double move from the slot, it's very unlikely that that's going to work in a game situation.
Yeah, that's true. That's a good point.
Too
much traffic, right in there.
And if you're a slot corner in one-on-ones, you're basically playing the first move and that's it. It's just silly the way people look at these one-on-ones and make them out to be these grandiose things. First of all,
right.
One-on-ones, wide receiver, D-back, big advantage, receivers, one-on-one defensive line, often a big advantage for the defensive line. There's certain, because of the nature of the drill, it's very heavily weighted towards one side anyway. But yeah, it's just silly. That's the worst thing about these practices. They're good. They're valuable for the teams. You heard Vic talk about it. He wished they could do more. They're tremendously valuable for the teams. But
yeah,
the when they do let you film these things and people get them out there, man, it's just mind-numbing, like one play in practice is the be-all, end-all. If that were the case, Jalen Reagor would be in the Hall of Fame because he made one of the best plays in practice I've ever seen in my life.
That stuff is so stupid, John. I don't understand how we became like that. It's like microwave society, I guess. Who knows? John, what did you make of Woolen, who seems to be getting beat up a little bit at camp? You mentioned something yesterday, and now I've kind of focused a little bit more on it after you said it. You said, he's tapered off a little bit. He hasn't had a good couple of as good of a couple of weeks here in camp as he did early, back in the spring. What do you make of Woolen right now? What you've seen, and then obviously you didn't have a chance to see yesterday, but he got beat a few times in there as well. Drake May had a pretty good day yesterday.
Yeah, I mentioned that earlier there in my opening salvo. He hasn't been the same player that he was in the spring since the pads came on, and maybe that's his strength, his speed, athleticism, and that shows up in shorts and shirts when you get the pads on. The physicality adds to it, and I usually talk about the offensive line. You see some of these athletic edge rushers, and Nick Sirianni will tell you that's the biggest athletic mismatch on a football field. Defensive ends against, or whatever you want to call them, outside linebackers, edge rusher, against offensive linemen. Biggest physical mismatch. But, you get the pads on guys like Lane Johnson, Jordan Mailata, where they can use their physicality, and all of a sudden that mismatch dies down quite a bit. But the same thing happens in other positions as well. And I think Reek Woolen in his history in Seattle is starting to show up where he's very gifted. Nobody's questioning the gifts, but he's not an all-pro level corner. And there's going to be some times where he does get beat. Vic has mentioned, the sloppiness on some reps and things like that. So, I mean, that's been his reputation, and he's been around long enough to say that's probably going to continue, but it's still a big upgrade of where they were at cornerback 2 last season. So I think you have to look at it from that standpoint.
Yeah, that's fair enough. All right, good stuff there, John. Offensively, you obviously talked about how it's tough to evaluate the pass game. I mean, these receivers just aren't good enough. So, but what'd you make of kind of the reports that came out yesterday? The running game looked pretty good in practice. You said you were intrigued by that. What'd you make of the offensive side of the ball yesterday? What they were able to do against New England, and then just the context on how you perceive 3 picks and 7-on-7. Just give me the Johnny Mac spin on that.
Well, the 3 picks, the Patriots put up video of them, so I got to look at him. The one is completely on Wicks. I mean, he short-armed the football, and it's like you're not even getting hit, dude. I mean, and that's sort of the danger of the middle of the field stuff. If something like that happens in the middle of the field, it's probably going to get picked off more often than not. And that's sort of what happened. There looked like an underthrow that was probably on the quarterback, and I forget, I got to look at the third one, but ultimately we talked about one thing. I'll bring that up now. The stats, the training camp stats. I mean, it's fucking bizarre, man. He's got 9 interceptions in training camp. Who gives a fuck? Just like when he had 0 a couple of, a couple of years ago, I said, that's probably not good. Probably not good to have 0 interceptions in training camp. Just that to me tells me you're not trying things. You're not trying to, feel out what you can get done. And you're just trying to be cautious, probably because you're reading training camp stats. So that has had a large impact on the league as a whole, and I think in a negative way. It's not that you don't. I mean, baseball's been around for years and they keep spring training stats, but it seems like everybody's aware that guys are working on things, and there's not much made about it. I don't know. Maybe it's because football's more popular and it's not, in the scarcity of it. But I think it's really impacting teams in the way they prepare. Or you can look at it like the Eagles are preparing to not turn over the football in previous years, and now they're willing to take more chances. Maybe that's a positive if you want to spin it that way. Instead of being that ultra risk averse.
Yeah, right.
So you could potentially steer it as some kind of positive to use that, as I said, to use that specific Wicks play. There's a perfect example of throwing the football over the middle field, the receiver making the mistake, and it's going the other way. And of course, the quarterback will get blamed for it, but that's part of it. I'm not too worried about it. Again, I think he's working with a group of receivers that are below average from an NFL standpoint. So to expect them to have a smooth passing attack in the summer with a new mentality on offense, whatever you want to call it, I mean, that's kind of silly. So I'm not as worried as most people are.
Yeah, I think that makes sense, Joe. If the run game's good enough, John, this year in terms of, 24 is kind of a pipe dream. I don't think it's smart to expect something like that. But let's just say the running game's good enough to be the crux of this offense again. Do you have confidence that the rest of the offense, the passing game of the offense, can fill in the blanks and do the rest that they need to do successfully?
Um. Well, yeah. I mean, if you play efficiently, I think that's the whole plan. I think the whole plan is to, um, being third manageable, basically, which was what hampered them so much before last year. So I think it's, and I've said it for a while. I think it's a big Saquon Barkley year. I think it all hinges on the running game. Can they be effective? And that's why I'm more positive, because all indications from, and the people I texted with, and all indications were that the running game looked really good. So, I think that's a big positive, that, again, that the first team offensive line has been healthy and been together. The only little hiccup was Lane taking a few days off and deciding this will be his final season. Um, I think it's all positive from that perspective. Cam looks much healthier. I don't know if Landon's much healthier. I don't know if he'll ever get back to what he once was, but he's much healthier than what he was from last year. Jordan's playing great. Tyler Steen's going to be a good player. And Lane's Lane. So as long as those guys are out there, I think the running game's going to be good. And I think that's going to help the passing game a lot. And I think that's the plan. I think it's a good plan. And I think it could work. But, I know everybody's hyper focused on the passing game. And even from that perspective, I can't judge this passing game until Devontae Smith and Mekhi Lemon are out there.
Yeah, it's very hard to do. Very hard to do.
We're talking about Elijah Moore. Elijah Moore made the play of the day, it seemed, offensively. And he said,
I think someone posted that up. Did someone post that? Was that the Eagles that posted that? Somebody posted it.
Yeah, I think the Eagles did. I think, and that was a good play. And he's had a good summer. He has. And Darius Cooper's had a good summer. He had a bad preseason game, but he's had a good summer. But they're not above average NFL receivers. They're not. They're probably not average NFL receivers. They belong in the league. But if you're doing the mean and saying, all right, let's grab up, they're below that line. They're below average NFL receivers. And Dontavian Wicks, to be blunt, is average. He doesn't have the athleticism to be, he's got great route running ability. But he's played a decent amount of time. He's topped out at 39 catches. He's had trouble catching the football. You saw the video of him short arming the football over the middle field. There's some issues there. Whereas you see the other side and what you lost. And I get people don't like him and they want to say, oh, he's dead to them and all that stuff. And he goes out there and he freaking dominates. That's what you would have had on your side. They don't have that.
Interesting, Johnny Mac. We'll see what it looks like this year.